From James Cameron, director of Aliens and T2. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Lee Curtis. True Lies.
What can I say? I'm a spy.
Welcome to the Real Buffs Podcast. I'm your host, Charlie.
And I'm Matt, and you're fired.
Oh, you got to love those good old-fashioned Arnold one-liners that just, I mean, they're so perfect for him. So if you haven't figured out yet, we are doing the 1994 action thriller comedy True Lies, directed by James Cameron, written by James Cameron, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Lee Curtis, Tom Arnold, Bill Paxton, Tia Carrera, Art Malik, Eliza Dushku, a young Eliza Dushku too, Grant Heslov, and Charlton Heston. Such an awesome movie and a great one to be talking about. And part of the reason why we're talking about this is this movie is going to be celebrating its 30th anniversary by the time we release this episode. It was released on July, I think it was July 15th or 12th of 1994. So, yeah, we're talking about True Lies today. Fun fucking movie to revisit.
Dude. First of all, I had like a midlife crisis yesterday because I was sitting there with Carrie. We were watching it, and I was like, "Oh, it came out in '94. That's only like 20 years ago." And then she was like, "No, dude, that was 30 years ago." I was like, "What?" And I was like, I swear to God, the 90s were like still 20 years ago, if that, to maybe 10 years. And she's like, no, this was. And then I looked up and like Jamie Lee Curtis was 35. She was like our age. And I was like, oh my, Tom Arnold is also our age. And I started to like, oh my God, do I look like this? Oh God, do I look this old? Because I thought like Tom Arnold looked like he was in his 40s easily. Arnold was in his mid 40s only. So like I started like spiraling at that moment, dude. And it was just like one of those moments where you don't realize just, yeah, it was 30 years ago, but like it really doesn't feel like it. And I guess that's just me going off. But, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 90s, starting with Kindergarten Cop. Actually, I'll say starting with Commando. He was on a run as a parental figure, if you will, where either his kids were getting kidnapped, he was a shitty dad, or he was a shitty husband. And so on this podcast, we will discuss Arnold is not the model male figure in your life, but he always comes through in the end.
He always does come through in the end. But yeah, I composed a list here of like movies that he's a bad dad or a bad father. And we got to talk about it because this is the worst, because it might be. I mean, that's part of the charm of the movie too. But anyways, yeah. So let's dive into the Chat GPT summary. So True Lies is a 1994 action comedy film directed by James Cameron, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Tom Arnold. The film follows Harry Tasker, Arnold Schwarzenegger, a seemingly ordinary computer salesman who is secretly a spy for the U.S. government counterterrorism task force known as Omega Sector. Harry's double life starts to unravel when he suspects his wife, Helen, Jamie Lee Curtis, of having an affair. He uses Omega Sector's resources to follow her and discovers that she is merely seeking excitement and adventure in her life. In an attempt to give her a taste of excitement, Harry orchestrates a fake spy mission for Helen. But things quickly go awry when they both get entangled in a real terrorist plot led by Salim Abu Aziz, the leader of a militant group called Crimson Jihad. The film combines intense action sequences with comedic elements, particularly the dynamic between Harry and Helen as they navigate through dangers of the terrorist plot while rediscovering their relationship. Jamie Lee Curtis's performance, especially in a memorable dance scene, is highly praised, and the film is notable for its impressive special effects and stunts. Ultimately, True Lies is a story about deception, adventure, rekindling love amidst chaos, blending thrilling action with humor and heart.
All
yeah,
right.
great. Yeah, it's so true how this film really does have a good, great. It's a great action comedy. But yeah, go
It
ahead, Matt.
is. I do have two things real quick. First of all, Jamie Lee Curtis's performance is memorable in that dance scene because it made me so physically uncomfortable watching her do that. Like, I've never found Jamie Lee Curtis attractive. Some people do. Great. I'm not saying she's like, I love Jamie Lee Curtis. Don't take that the wrong way, but it was just something about it because I'm so used to seeing her play those mom roles or like Freaky Friday or something like that, that I forgot that she did this dance scene. And then it reminded me of the workout scene with John Travolta, but also I feel like our guy, Salim there, maybe he was a little angry because we haven't invented the hair transplant yet. And so he was just mad about the fact that the top half of his head was bald and then he was hanging on for dear life back there. Maybe if we could have just like got the hair transplant thing going, he wouldn't have led the Crimson Jihad. I don't know.
Matt, are you saying that basically hair transplants in the world of True Lies would have solved worldwide terrorism? Is that what you're trying to say here? Global terrorism would have been eliminated by then?
He had an awful haircut going that maybe if he found either a good barber or something, he wouldn't have been so angry at everybody. I don't know. I don't know.
He looked like Larry from the Three Stooges, or what did you call him the other week when we were you tried to remember the name of the Three Stooges? It was like
the three something. I don't remember.
Yeah, that was hilarious though. I'll never forget that. I'm like, oh my god, man, it's the Three Stooges.
Good Lord.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, who knows? It could have, could also have been, Middle Eastern interventions, all that good stuff. We'll dive into stuff. Yeah, we'll have a further discussion about geopolitics later. Anyways, obviously, Matt. First question's like, what's your relationship with this film, though? Like, from before.
Don't remember watching it. I mean, obviously I was 4 years old when it came out, so I didn't see it when it first came out. There's no way I was able to watch, but I do remember watching it at some point. I think it might've been on TV or something. So I like remembered it, but I didn't remember it. And then yesterday, obviously, Carrie and I, my wife, we sat down. I was like, all right, here we go. It's on Disney Plus. First of all, if you don't have Hulu, which is just even better because when you log into Disney Plus and the amount of like adult content on there, I'm like, oh great, my kids are probably going to be diving through something like this. Parental controls are a reason, but yeah, I was sitting there yesterday. I remembered it. There was an air of familiarity. However, I forgot just how fucking awesome this movie is. Hollywood truly does not make action films like this. They take themselves a little too seriously now because like the 90s, I mean, even the 80s and 90s, you get the action films that are just, they're fun. They are fun. Not that like modern day action movies aren't. Like John Wick kind of returns that with some of his quips. But I mean, just like the one-liners that he has, like that Arnold's known for in these movies, the pure like outrageousness. He steals a Harrier jet at one point in this movie, and it's just like a nuke blows up at one random island in the Key West, like things like that. They just don't make them like this anymore. And maybe I sound like a boomer because when I was watching this yesterday, I just was so endeared to like the reason why I fell in love with movies was a lot has to do with Arnold Schwarzenegger and the way he just played that serious, non-serious action hero, like one of the last true great action heroes that we actually had growing up. Because I don't really know who's a really great action hero today.
I think Keanu would take the mantle right now. He's up there.
Yeah, that's fair.
I also would, Tom Cruise. We'd have to put him up there.
Good point. Tom Cruise. Yeah, he's on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, with what he's done with the Mission Impossible series, and then obviously
Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious. In this essay, I will also discuss. No, but I mean, I think that's why I love Fast and Furious so much is because of movies like True Lies, because they don't take themselves seriously and they get outrageous and people complain, but it's like, no, this is what movies are supposed to be. You're supposed to have fun. In some regard, like sure, the serious movies are the serious movies, but movies like these that don't take themselves seriously, they purposely play into the ridiculousness. There's no reason to complain, man. This movie is fun. It is so much fun. I have not laughed that hard in a movie in so long, especially in the ending sequences.
Yeah, it really is. The comedy hit me so much more in the face this time around.
Yes.
And partly because I was introduced to this movie at a younger age. Not that I was 4 or anything. I know I'm a few years older than you. I never saw it in the theaters when it first came out, but through the 90s is when my obsession with Arnold Schwarzenegger and action movies developed. So naturally, this movie had to have been seen. I'm 99% sure my dad showed me this movie or let us watch it, something like that. I mean, we had already seen the Gauntlet as far as Terminator, Predator.
Oh, yeah.
Those were already staples of my childhood at this point. But then True Lies, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, it was so much fun, and it also had the chick from Wayne's World in it. So I was like,
yes, right away
on her.
Yeah, Carrie's like, she looks familiar. I was like, dude, it's Wayne's World.
Yeah, Swing
Juno, yeah.
Yeah,
but you're right.
Guerrero.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I remember seeing Predator and Terminator and those more serious movies. I mean, Predator is not that serious, but like Terminator is a very serious Arnold. However, kind of with like Kindergarten Cop, he turned to comedy a little bit. So like Kindergarten Cop, he got comedic, and then you see like the last action hero. He's like that not serious action, and then True Lies, and then you get Jingle All the Way, and just all the even Eraser to a degree, and all of that other kind of stuff. Is just this Arnold that was, he was serious, but also not serious at the same time. And you got this beefcake running around doing things. And truly, like, that's the reason why we fell in love with movies. A lot of it can be attributed to this style of film.
Absolutely. And he's just he's so like,
there's a presence.
Yeah. He's so larger than life. And he's so, there's like this warmth to him and charisma to him, which allows him to play these fatherly roles too. Like, you actually feel like he's a dad. There's just a warmth to Arnold that's like not really, it's hard to replicate, I think.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him such a charismatic figure. I mean, he was the governor, obviously, of California.
Right. Yeah.
So, that's part of what makes him such a charismatic figure is how he portrays that on screen, his presence. But then he's able to be that action star and also be that father and have those comedic chops too, which is not easy for somebody who's doesn't have English as their first language. First off, like that can be a little bit hard to bring comedy into the English language when you that's not where you were born and raised learning. So yeah, so
much of comedy too is like nailing that moment, and like you just hit on, is it's harder when English might not be your first language. So like to nail those comedic things, I almost feel like that too like attributes to just the silliness of it all and the non-seriousness at the same time. And he's managed so much of comedy is hitting that punchline right when you need to. And I think somehow he naturally does it.
Yeah, he does. And the good thing is like, he can play things straight, but then he also has his cheesy one-liners that he's been known for throughout his whole career, obviously going back all the way to the Terminator, when they really weren't, supposed to be funny one-liners, but I think that's where it came about. And then obviously Commando is what really, sealed it for him. I love Commando, but yeah,
let's have some steam.
So for our opening question, we kind of already alluded to is Harry the worst husband / father that Arnold has ever portrayed? And I've got a list about 4, I think, that are pretty bad. So we got this one, obviously. So Harry, and this is part of the whole plot is how basically this life of being a spy affects Harry being a father and a husband. So how it affects his home life. And it's basically like, you think of the plot of the movie, it's like, okay, like basically what if James Bond had to go home at the end of the day? And we got to see that. Like that's sort of the simple premise of it right there. So it plays into it. But then you have films like Jingle All the Way, where he's a pretty shitty
my personal favorite Christmas movie, just saying.
Yeah, there you go. Another good one. We've Commando, where he's obviously the father in that.
Alyssa Milano is his daughter in that one. So like he's been a parent to some really famous, like Alyssa Milano, Liza Dushku, and then oh man, his name escapes, but he played Anakin Skywalker, Jake Lloyd.
Jake Lloyd,
so like,
and then
he's
in Last Action Hero, it's Bridget Wilson. From Billy Madison. Yeah. So she's the one in Last Action Hero. But yeah, he's a shitty father and husband in that. I mean, if I'm going to vote for any one of them, it might have to be Last Action Hero. He let his son die in that. So, I mean, that's in another movie within that movie, because Last Action Hero is kind of like one of those truly beginning meta 90s movies that like movies talking about other movies. But yeah, it's he does let his son die in that movie. So I by default, I'd have to say it's that.
I mean, arguably, I will say it was this one only because he kind of puts his wife through psychological torture almost when they break in, they kidnap her, they interrogate her, and then he like sets up this whole plot and then makes like everybody around him play into it, and he misuses government funds to make her do that dance for what she thinks is some random man. And then he gets on top of her and she thinks it's some random man still, and like starts kissing her and stuff. And so he like puts her, and then he like completely, he doesn't even like interact with his daughter in a loving way almost at all in this movie, except for the big finale is the first time he really interacts with her, and then just the amount of lying. So like arguably, yeah, I see your point, but like his kid's dead in that movie versus he still has to live with his wife and daughter in this movie even after like all the psychological torture and shit that he puts them through. So I almost feel like that's worse in a way because they're still alive dealing with it.
They are still alive dealing with it, but now it's kind of come clean what his life is there. So like,
and she does join him in the end. I'll say that. Yeah. Which I have some nits to pick about that. Like, oh yeah.
Like a little bit
the
later,
amount of therapy they're going to need for a relationship, and the amount of therapy, their daughter's going to need, but
no, my whole thing is that like, how the fuck does the government just allow her all of a sudden to be a spy now too? Like that's
look,
so
it was
random.
The 90s, man. We were all about misappropriating government funds, and it all started there, and then it just spitballed to where we're at today. Okay.
Well, we weren't having any like actual wars at that time too, so
we were just making up conflicts left and right back then.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I've got a list here. I think this is the last great Arnold movie in his like run. You know what I mean?
All the way.
I don't know. Because like there's a few duds in there before then, and I know what you're saying with Jingle All the Way.
I'm biased. That's my favorite Christmas movie. So, but if we'll be realistic, I'll listen. I'm here.
All right.
I'm open ears.
Because this is the run. It starts in 1982 with Conan the Barbarian. Then you got Conan the Destroyer and Terminator in the same year in 1984. You've got Commando and Raw Deal. Commando comes out in 85, Raw Deal 86. 87, I believe, is The Running Man and Predator. And then Twins, which is actually his real first comedy right there.
Yes, so Danny DeVito.
Total Recall, Kindergarten Cop, T2, Last Action Hero, True Lies. I think when you look at his action run, and I've thrown a few comedy movies in here because the size of that 12-year run, he's one of the biggest movie stars on the planet right there. I mean, and I'd say like at the point of like T2, Last Action Hero, and True Lies, like he really is at like the apex of his career at this point. I mean, he could do anything in Hollywood at that point. So,
agreed.
Yeah, that's where I think I look at his run for that 12-year run, which is, he's basically like shit, dude. That's well, think of any sports team. That's like he had a run like the Lakers, basically.
I would say the Lakers or even the Patriots from 2000 onward, right? I mean, just absolute domination out there. Like anytime Arnold was in a movie during this time period, you were going to sit in the seat and you were going to watch it. And to a degree, I'll argue that, modern day Dwayne Johnson is really trying to be what Arnold was. And I don't think he is, and for various reasons, but it's very interesting that like 94 ends that whole Arnold, because he still had some in him. He was still in movies. He's still in movies. He was in The Expendables, which is just action with like loaded throughout, everybody's in those movies. He made some other ones that aren't action movies, but he's just older, obviously, the early 2000s. And then obviously he had his Governor run, which kind of ceased his acting career for a good while, understandably so. But Yeah, it's very interesting that like he was riding hot and then he knew when to kind of stop almost, or whether it was up to him or they were just like, all right, we're done with these. But I would also say like Dwayne Johnson tried to replicate that and he couldn't, because I don't think that Dwayne Johnson has the level of run that Arnold has. And I was just thinking of two beefcakes that were trying to do both the comedic and action star type thing.
Yeah, I think what The Rock is missing that Arnold has is what I mentioned before. It's that warmth and that charm. Not to say that the Rock like just seems like, and he probably is a really nice guy. Like he actually seems.
The Rock
like
is more business. He's all about his brand. Whereas Arnold seemed Arnold might have been all about, but this is like an era before brands. You know, people needed to like have a brand to go anywhere. Arnold just is genuine, I feel like, which not to say The Rock might not be, but he's definitely all about his brand. That's just him. Like, I mean, even looking at movies, he has it in his contract where he can't lose fights, which cause things. And then trying to do different things that we've heard. And who knows, like, put Arnold in this modern day, maybe there would have been things behind the scenes too that we didn't hear about. But I think that's more of what it is. Like there's an era of non-genuineness from The Rock versus just Arnold's screen presence. He gave you that warmth. You know, he just seemed likable. Yeah,
there's just this warm charm to him that I think The Rock is missing, because I think The Rock has better comedic chops than Arnold.
I would agree there. Yeah.
I mean, just look at his WWE days. Like
John Cena beats both. Right there. I'll say John Cena beats both in the comedic aspect. If we're talking about buff guys going to the action / comedic chops.
Yeah, and that's another good one. John Cena you'd think that he'd have kind of taken up the mantle too. Not that we've had a few WWE ones try that. I mean, going back to Hulk Hogan, who just but Hulk Hogan did this in the era of Arnold, so we expected more from our superhero like action stars at that point. So yeah, I mean, like it's just one of those things that nobody's really taken up the mantle yet. And I mean, like you said, I think the action stars has kind of evolved. We don't need to have this imposing, almost superhuman figure with this perfect physique like Arnold did. We could have a Keanu Reeves be the biggest action star in the world, or even Tom Cruise, you know, who's 5'0". But that all changed with some movies that actually came out in the early 90s. When you look at like Batman, the original Batman with Tim Burton. That actually was a big contributor to it. I would even say Point Break was a big contributor.
Point Break
as well.
Point Break is a really good one. I would argue, honestly, if Hollywood really wanted to maybe replicate that, you know who I think would have been the perfect person for them to like really pinpoint down is Henry Cavill. If they really truly wanted to replicate that warmth, that action, because if you look at Henry Cavill's action, you know, there was that movie he was in with Armie Hammer, who we don't want to talk about, but they were like the spies, which was really good. And they had comedic chops. He was in Mission Impossible. He's got the action. He's got that nerdiness about him. He was in The Witcher. He was obviously Superman, but he's very good, like comedy. He was in, if you think the one movie that came out not long ago with him and John Cena, but it was Bryce Dallas Howard and the spy movie. I forget the name. I watched it. It was okay. But I think Henry Cavill, if they really wanted to recreate something like this, that he would be the one to go after. But you're right. We don't need to do that anymore, because you don't need to have that buff guy. You can have a John Wick, which also I would argue is comedic inadvertently with some of the stuff that they do, especially in the most recent one where he's getting pushed down 13 flights of stairs and still gets back up. It was just ridiculous.
Well, we talked about that before with those movies. Their focus on more of the physical comedy. They're almost akin to some of the Buster Keaton silent movies back in the day, or you know, from Charlie Chaplin, those eras. So there's more this physical visual comedy that's intertwined with that. And even Jackie Chan did that to a point too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what sort of these movies are kind of tapping into. But yeah, let's dive into this, because where do we put like True Lies though on this great run that Arnold had from 1982 to 94? You know, like it's almost like if we were to rank those Celtics teams from the 80s or those Lakers teams from the 80s, like which one would we say is best? Like I'm looking at it here, and I mean, I can't put True Lies number one.
I would say Terminator is just probably number one.
I mean, Terminator and T2 are probably number one, and you could probably flip flop.
I've kind of put them together just because he is the Terminator. So I would say like Terminator is probably his best actual role. But I mean, I would even put Predator next, and because look at the things that have spawned from Predator, and I love Commando. Honestly, I think the pure just outrageousness in terms of just everything would be Commando and True Lies. Those that's kind of like my top right there.
Yeah, Commando's it's just a lot of fun. Like that's Arnold just leaning into leaning into what it is, and it's just like an action movie. I think they basically came to Arnold with the idea of like, hey, you know, we've had this whole Rambo thing. Like, why don't we make you into one and just make it pure action, you know? Because in Rambo, the first one, he's dealing with like PTSD and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's real heavy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's like what they did.
It's like your first unofficial spoof movie almost.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I would say for me, it's T2, T1 as 1 and 2. I don't even think I could put True Lies at 3. I would think I'd put Predator at 3, similar to you. And then it gets a little dicey because that's where I think that it falls into when you go to that 4, 5, 6 spot. Like you've got Total Recall, True Lies, and then Last Action Hero, which I think is super underrated.
That was actually the first movie Carrie and I ever watched together. Funny enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She came over and we put Last Action Hero on and we ended up watching the entire thing.
Dude, I was going to say, was it a Netflix and chill situation?
It was supposed to be, but it turned into a Netflix and we watched the whole damn movie.
That movie is a lot of fun. And you've got a really good bad guy in that movie, which is actually that's
one we're going to need to talk about at some point.
Yeah, I think we got to talk about that at this point. But yeah, I'd say True Lies is probably like in that 4, 5, 6 spot. If I'm going to put a gun to my head, I'd say I'd put True Lies ahead of Last Action Hero. But yeah, I would put True Lies ahead of Last Action Hero on that. And then I do have a soft spot for The Running Man. The Running Man's fucking awesome, dude. Well,
that is a good one.
It's so much fun. We'll do it at some point.
I mean, obviously, Jingle All the Way is like my favorite.
Yeah,
Christmas
your favorite.
So like I left it off there for a reason because it wasn't in this time period. But if I had to, it'd be Jingle All the Way, of course. I don't know why, man. I can't explain it. But that's the last time you're gonna hear me mention it on this podcast. Maybe. Yeah,
I think that's his like outlier though. Like, you know, it's like when you look at the breadth of work, it's like it's the outlier in the runs that he had, because it was a good movie and I enjoy that movie as a Christmas movie, and it's a fun comedy in general. So, but it's just like he'd already kind of like it was been like a little bit of a downward slope at that point.
Oh yeah,
like, this is a ray of sunshine, you know.
It doesn't fall within this absolute stellar run that he has.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into the production notes. So I got most of this from so I bought the 4K Blu-ray or Blu-ray Ultra. Yeah, dude, it's so I just got an Xbox Series X, so I can now watch it 4K, and I was fucking pumped. Oh my god, it looks amazing.
It does, yeah.
It looks amazing. But obviously, it came with the documentary, like making of. So most of my notes and stuff like that, I just watched that yesterday and was like transcribing it. So according to Arnold, at the beginning of this this documentary, there was this agent who specializes in getting French films, and he had a movie for Arnold, and it was called La Totale. And Arnold fell in love with the movie, and he fell in love with it so much that he brought it to the first director that came to his mind, which was James Cameron. And Cameron totally got what he was going for with the movie, basically a spy thriller like James Bond, but Arnold was playing the main character. So that allowed him to bring like sort of this superhuman presence to the character, and also like a different style, because James Bond is like the super cool, suave. That's
he's
not
out there
Arnold.
Banging women and stuff. Yeah, that's not Arnold at all. Like, no. Something about Arnold, like he's the family man, not like the hey, I'm just gonna randomly meet chicks and bang them on a whim like James Bond would.
Well, I mean, Arnold was doing that in real life, to be fair. So.
I mean, obviously, to be fair, yes. I mean, that's totally different. Totally different. I'm talking about his screen presence.
Even as a married man. Yeah. So, but it basically gave it gave them the ability to ground this character and allowed Arnold's humor to show a little bit more. So that's where he was going for. And it's basically, like I'd mentioned earlier, it's like if James Bond were to go home and deal with his wife and daughter and the issues of their relationships because the relationships he has with them because he's not around. So that's where like the premise from the movie came from La Totale. So Cameron was a little bit nervous because like this is an action comedy and it's hard to get the right tone stylistically. So the style can be in service of both without sacrificing one or the other. Like he even says in that, he's like, yeah, he's like, you typically find you're serving one master or the other, but I think they do a really good job of injecting comedy in the action sequences at every point. So, you know, whether you have just one of your classic Arnold one-liners where he's like cool off, you know, after he throws the throws the guy into the urinal
or the urinal. Yes. Oh my God.
Or even when he bangs the two dogs' heads together and he goes, stay, you know, that's the first one right there. So they started they had to start with casting to like get the right tone. Like you need the right actors to get these characters right. So they started with casting after Cameron had finished the script for it, and he wanted Jamie Lee Curtis. But Arnold actually was against it because he thought she was too beautiful and the audience wouldn't find her believable to be like this stay-at-home mom. And Cameron was like, dude, just leave that to me. That's my job to like get her to look like that.
Like, yeah.
So, so Cameron was like fixated on her, and like, because he wanted to confirm that his suspicions was right. He was like, I'm going to go sit down and watch the movie called, A Fish Called Wanda. So that stars Jamie Lee Curtis. And after watching that, he knew. He's like, this has to be Jamie Lee Curtis. So he goes over to Arnold's house and he basically is like, look, do you trust me? And Arnold's like thinking about it for a minute. He's like, yes, I trust you. There you go.
That was actually
Arnold. Pretty good. Thank you. So he's like, all right, well, it's Jamie. And so Arnold pauses and he's like, okay,
Jamie.
Yeah. Jamie. So Arnold's like, yes, you know, okay, let's do it. So
she was like, he knows my name.
Ta-ta, Turbo Man. So Arnold trusts Cameron, and Cameron's like, we're doing it. And Arnold's like, all right, let's do it. Let's do it with Jamie. And for Gibb, I didn't find any casting what ifs on like this stuff, like, or
I didn't. I was kind of looking up if there was anything for the Rick and Morty, and I didn't see anything.
There really wasn't. So we'll have to discuss what we're going to do for that later. But for Gibb, Tom Arnold was like the main choice. It was Arnold said, though, it was kind of a risky choice because he really hadn't done a big movie like this and had a big role like this in a movie. So, but I think what he does with it is totally good. Like he does
I played
really
the
well
fifth
in this
until
role.
our awards. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, he does really well in this role. So the other big character they cast for was Simon, which they obviously landed Bill Paxton, which Bill Paxton's a fucking
oh my God, dude. Oh my God, yes.
But he's another frequent collaborator with James Cameron, going all the way back to the Terminator, where he plays a small role as like one of the punks at the beginning that Arnold kills. So
yeah.
They were him and James Cameron were actually friends before they were making movies together before either one of them had like made it in the industry. So, and the cool thing is that Paxton's father was a traveling salesman. So he kind of helped Bill with the Simon character and like add some stuff in there. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, diving into some of how they shot the movie. So for the scene in with the party in Switzerland, it was very much inspired by Bond. Like that's pretty obviously. And then specifically the film On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where they wanted to, basically that's where they get like the whole ski chasing sequence. That film has been referenced numerous times. Even Inception does it as well when you get into the snow scene in that, where they're chasing on the snowmobiles and everything. But they wanted to make it big though, because like this is Arnold. Like there's an Arnold action movie, and you got James fucking Cameron doing it, so he's gonna make it bigger. So originally Harry was supposed to be chased down by a helicopter on the chase and shoot it down with a large gun, and he was gonna use the propeller from the helicopter to ski down the hills with guys shooting at him. So
that would have been so amazing.
I know, dude.
By Rick and Morty.
Cameron's talking about it, and like this was all approved. They were gonna do it. They had like the rigs and everything, but when they got there, just logistically was a nightmare. And Cameron had mentioned, he's like, it was freezing cold. He's like, look, he's like, we're just gonna do it like this. He's like, we're gonna have him run down the hill, sliding down the hill. He's gonna turn around and like shoot the gun a bunch of times. The cool thing about Cameron is that like he actually, he physically does a lot of this stuff before asking his actors do it to like have an idea of what it's going to look like. So he explained it to him. And Cameron says, he's like, what we shot is like 1/10 of what was supposed to be in the movie. So, and he even goes on to say, I respect this about Cameron. He's like, yeah, he's like, this is a good lesson for you young filmmakers out there. You can always just rip some pages out. He's like, now I haven't followed that advice since, but he's like, that's what you can always do. So I always thought that. So that was great. During the bathroom scene, which is the other big action set piece, it's one of the only scenes Arnold got hurt from when he worked with James Cameron. He actually did get a little bit hurt. So when he's ripping that hand dryer off the wall, basically Cameron, like I said before, he did it ahead of time, and Cameron whacked his hand on the countertop. And so he told Arnold, he's like, hey, when you do this, make sure you do it like in a way that prevents your hand from hitting it. But Arnold's in the heat of the moment and the passion, like he forgot, and he whacked his hand. He like cut his hand, is bleeding all over the place and stuff.
Damn.
He was obviously fine. But yeah, so that was really like how he got hurt on that. For the scenes with the horse though, that Arnold's riding. Oh my
God, dude, absolutely ridiculous.
It's so much fun. So he was riding on most of that, because even going back to Conan, like he was pretty proficient at riding horses. So he was doing most of that. Obviously, when it's like really fast, the horse is moving, they've got a stunt guy and somebody who's a little bit more proficient riding horses. Right. But yeah, he did a really good job. The only thing that they did have to do was have a fake horse in the elevator scene. And actually, fun fact about that elevator. Well, you can't
actually have a horse in that elevator because it weighs too much.
It's not the weight, actually. That wasn't the issue. It was the fact that he's like, hey, yeah, like I can't have like a live horse in an elevator, because if it starts freaking out,
it would probably freak out big time.
It's more to do with that, of the horse freaking out. So fair. Yeah, they just had a fake horse in the elevator on that at that point, shooting those scenes. And because you have the shot of like Arnold on the horse and you see both elevators. So and I've actually been to that hotel. I did an event at that hotel back in 2023, I believe.
All right, big shot. Okay.
Yeah, I did an event at the hotel, and it's pretty cool. I've got a picture, and there's a little placard of like True Lies. I knew before I even saw that placard that I'm like, this is the True Lies hotel. I was like, it's in downtown LA. Yeah. So it was pretty cool. It's not in Washington DC like it portrays to be though.
No, but first of all, let's explain, like, not like, this might sound a little racist, but there's not a single black person in this movie. First of all, like, that's something Carrie and I pointed out. We're like, this is weird. The streets of DC are awfully clear because DC's covered in traffic. And also, like, there's no cops at all for Washington, DC. Like, all this stuff's going on, and there's not a single actual cop present.
Yeah. There's no Metro police whatsoever. I mean, there's one cop. Who do you think he steals the horse?
Oh, that's right. He takes the horse. You're a terrible cop to the horse.
He basically says, I'm a government employee, and then takes it from him. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Is that how it works? He didn't flash a badge or anything.
Apparently, yeah. In the 90s, anything goes.
Yeah, exactly. So the hotel scene with Helen and the fake mission, set up by Harry. Jamie Lee Curtis had that black dress in real life. So she kind of had the idea of having the dress be like a rip away dress sort of deal with where it reveals, the real black dress. And so it was cool. She took that idea to Cameron. He loved it. And like then had the costume designer, Marlene Stewart, like made it into what we saw in the film.
Right.
So I thought that was really cool collaboration. And,
Agreed.
You'll see that Jamie has some like really good ideas. I think when you think of like comedy, she's definitely more of like her and Bill Paxton have like more of Arnold does too, but like they've got great comedic chops. I mean, obviously Jamie Lee Curtis is married to Christopher Guest, so like,
yeah.
so I'm sure, even her in her own right has great ones, but wouldn't be shocked if she had some conversations with him and he's probably like, oh, why don't you think of this too? Anyways. Yeah. So that's how they did that. During the striptease though, on this mission, they made up some stuff. It wasn't overly choreographed. So like when Helen starts dancing at the beginning, when he first says dance, like that's something like her and Cameron came up with. So, and I could see that. And it so fits the character because like,
that's what I was going to say.
No, to be sexy.
Her whole thing's like, she's this house mom who's in this rut. Right. And she's never like adventured out. So it's like, it kind of makes sense with her character that she'd be falling off the bedpole. She'd be slipping. She'd be like awkward air about it. Like, of course that makes perfect sense. And that again leans into like Jamie Lee Curtis's ability as an actress. Yeah,
absolutely. And then the great part is that the part where she slips off the bedpost pole too. So her and Cameron came up with that idea as well. They didn't tell Arnold when they were filming that. And so in that scene, when she slips, you can see like his character in the background go to like get up and like help her out because he genuinely thought she slipped, but then he quickly like gets back into character. And that's the take they use in the movie. And I love how they use that because that's it's so within that, like you have to think here's a husband who's pretending to be somebody else and thinking, oh, I've got to still remain in character, but his instinct is to help his wife.
Yeah, dude, the whole thing flowed so well. Their chemistry worked so well.
Yeah, I would agree. It was really, it was something to behold. I forgot how much like I just love them together on this. And for me, it was weird. Like going back to it, before I'd seen this movie, I'd obviously seen some Arnold movies, and then I'd seen Halloween at a probably way too young of an age. So I always seeing Jamie Lee Curtis with horror films. And for me, this was another thing about this movie. It was like two of my worlds colliding into one. I was like, whoa, like they made a movie together. I'm like, that's so cool. And yeah, another reason why I loved it. Anyways, I digress. Let's go talk about the bridge scene, the 7 Mile Bridge in the Keys, and how they filmed some of that.
Yes.
So they actually did shut that down. They filmed it on location. They could only shut it down for 20 minutes at a time. So they'd shut it down for about 20 minutes, and then they open it for about 20 minutes. So it was all filmed on the bridge. This is not a studio, no CGI. All of the stunts and all of like the stuff with the car, all real. Like in Jamie Lee Curtis actually being in it and everything. Nuts. So
I love that so much.
It's because it was all really done. Like they had to accomplish it. And, Cameron's going through of like, okay, well, how do I want to do this? He's like, not only do I need to figure out how to crash this, but like, I just need shots of like, hey, the hand grab, because you see it like cuts away to just like a close up of them grabbing hands. But then obviously when the car falls, like she's already kind of strapped in at that point,
Yeah.
So that's just how it works. It was incredible though. Like that whole stunt, they had a remote, also they had a remote control, limo going 75 miles per hour to get the shot done.
That's
incredible.
Insane.
Incredible. Like this stuff you can't do with
well, James Cameron and Spielberg are two like the early pioneers of like practical effects almost. Like not to say like they're the guys that did it, but I mean, look at what Spielberg kind of did with like Jurassic Park and the dinosaur, right? And then you have James Cameron always looking to do things practically and push until Avatar, but obviously they can't do a lot practical with blue aliens and stuff. But like seriously though, they figured it out, and I think they paved the way, because I think a lot of times now you see these bloated budgets, and it's because so many studios and directors are trying to lean into CGI when like a lot of the reasons why a lot of these scenes from these types of movies hold up is they're real. They're legit. Like everything about these movies, not everything, obviously they can't really fly a Harrier jet through buildings of Miami or whatnot, but still like legit doing practical effects. You see that they hold up today.
Yeah, they really do. And I mean, they did use real Harrier jets, but not obviously.
I knew they did. Yeah. You know, the second, like you saw those Marines hop out, number one, like I even told Carrie, I guarantee these are real, because, you know, the Marines and the DOD are going to be dying to show off, because the Harrier back in the 90s was kind of revolutionary for its ability to, before the F-35, they were the ones that could like rise up, take off, like just like we saw in the movie. So of course they were dying to show off, especially like Arnold hopping in one of those. That's going to like boost recruitment numbers astronomically.
Oh yeah. That's basically what Cameron said when they were talking about it. He basically was like, well, we just took the Top Gun approach, and we're like called up DOD, and we're like, yeah, we want to use some Harrier jets for this film. So nice when you can have that within your budget to be able
can I borrow a couple planes by chance? Like, I don't know why more movies, and like, you know, if we really have like a recruiting issue that the DOD says today, dude, just get with Hollywood, man. But hey, you want to borrow a couple of our pilots' planes? Like, let's do some sort of movie to make it look cool again.
Yeah, it's a little tough right now, but I mean, maybe it's because of that, maybe because of CGI, and also like we've talked about it before, like movies' cultural impact in the 90s is a lot different than what it is today. It's just it's just a different time that we're living in.
Without a doubt, dude. Without a doubt.
But yeah, for the scenes that we talked about where they didn't use the Harrier jets, because they use the real ones when they're obviously looking at it in the Keys, like that's right. How they're really flying
open airspace. Yeah,
open air. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, but you look in, you're looking in the where we're flying in Miami in those buildings, like they used basically a model plane for that was strapped to the crane that they were in, that's in the movie that you see, that's like the crane that was holding it up. So they used it right there. And so, yeah, you've just got like this movie.
You mean they didn't actually put an actual plane through a window of a building? Like the DOD didn't let them damage their planes?
Nope. Not dealing with that. What's it, probably billions of dollars of equipment.
Actually,
right there.
Also like real talk though, talking about modern day uses of DOD planes, like most of our planes nowadays have so much top secret equipment on it that like they don't let anybody touch them for a good reason, because of the geopolitics. Not to dive into that, but that's something that just came to my mind.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah. Well, even back in the 60s, remember we talked about Dr. Strangelove and the whole thing with the bomber, and then they replicated it. And they were like,
exactly.
So yeah, that's Hollywood's kind of have a long history working with the DOD and
Transformers. They filmed at actual military bases for the first Transformers movies down in Texas, actually.
Oh, yeah, and you know what the issue with that was too is that they were afraid that they were going to actually nail the Transformers that the government has been working on. So like,
true. Actually, we have Optimus Prime. We're just waiting for the right time when China builds their version, and then they're going to go toe to toe. And that's how modern wars are actually going to be fought. You see it with drone warfare now. Optimus is going to go out there, fight the drones, whole big thing.
Yep. There we go. That's how it's going to work. So pretty much ending here as far as like the production goes, but the idea of a sequel did come up. I heard in this, and basically because this is an action comedy that dealt with urban nuclear terrorism, it was kind of ruined by 9/11. So, all right.
Well, first of all,
Cameron couldn't make it like it's a comedy, and Cameron's like, I just didn't think it was funny anymore. So,
well, they could have filmed a sequel before 9/11 happened. Like this movie came out in 94. You could have come up with a sequel in like 97. If
he was doing Titanic at that point.
That's fair. You're right. You're right. But they could have hit a sequel. I would have watched that, because I was wondering, it's like, man, this could have done like well as a sequel where they both kind of get into some more spy stuff. And then you could even brought Eliza Dushku in the fold as the daughter to kind of get in, because she would have been a little bit older at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, because she would have been. I mean, she did like Bring It On in like the early 2000s or late 90s around that time. So, I mean, shout out to Elijah Dushku, Boston actress right there too.
Yes.
I think Watertown is where she's originally from.
I would want to escape that town as well. Played a lot of basketball in that town. Wasn't good growing up.
Fair enough. All right. Box office. Made 146 million in the domestic box office in 1994, 378 worldwide.
Pretty good.
Matthew, where does that put it in 1994? We already discussed last week.
Well, Lion King's number 1 with Forrest Gump number 2. So I don't know, number 10.
No, higher.
Wait, like more towards the top, like towards Lion King or farther away?
Towards Lion King.
Number 5?
Higher.
3?
Yep. Number 3.
This is the number 3 movie in 94. No kidding. Yeah. Wow.
A 2 hour and 20-minute action, rated R action spy comedy. So yeah.
Well, I guess you're running off the power of Arnold and Jamie Lee, like arguably like Jamie Lee Curtis is one of the biggest female actresses of all time. And then Arnold is Arnold. So I guess that makes a lot of sense. And it was legitimately good. So
yeah. And it was, number 3, just ahead of a couple other, other family movies, and then a couple other action movies as well. So when we look at that adjusted for inflation, what do you think we're at as far as millions of dollars here from 1994 to 2024?
I would say about 500.
Less than that.
Okay. Cause I was thinking Lion King made like 900 something. So I was thinking of like, I don't know, 350 domestically.
Close. Yeah. It's closer. It's 310. So,
that's actually, I mean, for a rated R action movie, like that's pretty good in the 90s. I mean, damn.
Really good. I mean, we can look at it now though. I mean, it's kind of on par for what it is now though. So like when I look at it and compare it to 2023, you've got Barbie obviously being number 1, but then you've got some of the Marvel action movies like Across the Spider-Verse. Well, that's more of an animated one, but Guardians of the Galaxy 3 made 350 million in 2023. Oppenheimer made 326. So this would be like right in that number 5 range. Like this would be right above The Little Mermaid, which made 298. So, and that would be amazing. And actually right above another Cameron movie, Avatar, which made 283. So
yeah,
Cameron kind of just staying consistent for what he makes as far as movies go.
True.
Always with the high box office numbers for him. Yeah. So critical reception, we've got a 63 on Metacritic and then a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. We got 1 Oscar nom too. Care to guess?
Ooh, special effects.
Yeah, visual effects. And actually it lost out to, let me guess what it lost out to.
94 special effects. I don't know what else came out in 94. Jurassic Park was 93.
Yeah, but think of some of the movies that were ahead of it as far as like.
Did it lose to like, well, visual effects? Would they have been Lion King then?
Nope.
I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea.
It lost to Forrest Gump.
I was going to say Forrest Gump, but I was like, well, I guess they did some special effects as like inserting him into like different time periods, but
yeah, that was it.
I guess
one of the many Forrest Gump second guesses from the 1995 Oscars. Let's just say that.
We'll leave that at that. Yes, true. We've already kind of talked about that one. Yeah,
we could do a whole podcast on the 1994 Oscars. All right, so let's dive into our categories. Best scene. I've got a solid 5 here because I think like most of the action set pieces are where the best scenes are, but maybe a couple others that are more comedic that I like in here too. But the opening scene in Switzerland is fucking awesome. Yeah. I love it. Also, gotta give a shout out here. My middle school biology teacher is an extra in this scene, and I spot him every time.
Where in this scene?
Yeah, in the scene. So at the beginning, when he first gets to the party, after he's kind of coming through the kitchen and like walking in, you know, he goes and he sees the he says to the chef, he's like, get all this stuff out of here or whatever. And he's first entering the party. He's one of the extras right there. And he's right clear in shot.
Dude, that's so cool.
I know. I took a picture and I like sent it to my brothers. And I'm like, who's this guy? And they're like, that's awesome.
Dude.
I'm like, yep, that's him. Good old Mr. Gogolus right there.
I love
Shout out to Mr. Gogolus, one of my best teachers ever. So yeah, so I always like that scene. It's that James Bond scene though too. It's a really cool chase scene. And you got the tango, which is awesome. I love that whole scene. I love how they incorporate that dance in for what in the escalation of what's going on, of like Arnold being, or the security guards realizing that there's a spy in the building or somebody's infiltrated the party. So I really love that. And then the other one I've got is the bathroom and hotel chase on the horse.
That is a good one. Yes.
Next one I've got is Harry and Simon's car ride. I fucking love this whole scene with Harry and Simon just because Bill Paxton is so great. Oh my God. I love Bill Paxton in this movie. And then the last couple scenes I like the interrogation of Helen because I think this is Jamie Lee's like time to shine. Like this is,
yes,
and she does so well. And
her emotions are so well, like how she gets angry and then back to like the emotional and kind of talks about. Then you see like the lovingness, like I love, Harry, and then she gets really mad and she's smashing the chair against the window. Like she does really freaking good.
Yeah, I do like that one. All right, last one I have too is the 7 Mile Bridge scene. I think that's the best.
I have one to throw in.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Dude, how about when they take Simon and they're standing there and they, we thought we found you, Carlos. And then they take off their mask. He's like, oh no. And he's like, wait, you're the guy from the car. And then like they're interrogating him and he starts peeing his pants. And then they're just looking like sad, pathetic man. And they walk back and he's, standing there and Tom Arnold shoots the gun around his feet and everything like that. Like something about that scene was just like, you see these two like goofballs and they're just like, oh my God, really? And Bill Paxton plays it so well. Oh
God. He's so great in that. Like, I love when he plays a character like that. He can, cause he does it. He gets into that character to play like this slime ball guy.
Yeah.
And it's a good acting job because if you think about it, like there's so many levels he's working on. Like he's an actor pretending to be a used car salesman who's also a used car salesman pretending to be a spy. So like,
oh yeah,
there's some multiple levels that he's working on right there. And I think he does a brilliant job with it. So yeah, I love it. And to me, that's why I love him in this, but all right. So one more scene to add. So I'm going to give it to the party in Switzerland. That's still my favorite. There's no better way to open a movie than to have that scene right there. So
that's fair. I think I'm going to overall do the interrogation scene because meanwhile, Jamie Lee is putting on a hell of a serious performance. You got Tom Arnold sitting there like making jokes and things like that. There's just like the duality of it. You can't help but kind of laugh at. And first and foremost, like I want to just hats off to Jamie Lee and like transforming in that role because for the most of the movie at that point, you're like, oh, she's just like this housewife, blah, blah, blah. But no, she really turns it on there.
She really does. And she just does an amazing job of like conveying that she's both like, there is this like, she's this maternal working professional character, but there's also something there underneath the surface. And I like that. Yeah. And I think her performance leans into that heavily. So, and yeah, it was her time to shine. Like that was the big acting moment for her. She had probably the most interesting role for like an actor in this movie.
Mm-hmm. She was multi-dimensional versus, everybody else. You knew who they were right from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Arnold's Arnold. Arnold's going to be Arnold. Like that's where you need somebody who's going to be able to handle that. And Jamie Lee does a great job.
Without a doubt.
All right. Quotable line. I could have gotten into the numerous Arnold one-liners that he has in this, but I tried to keep it simple. So one of my favorites is just this throwaway one, but it's at the beginning where basically Tom Arnold's character Gib is picking up Harry from his house and he sees Dana and she's got the motorcycle helmet on and he goes,
boy, I remember the first time I got shot out of a cannon.
Morning. Go to school.
Oh, that was great. I was dying. I was like, that's a good funny line. I love it.
Yeah.
It's so corny too. And then you have some of the great Arnold one-liners, like here, cool off, when he does it to the guy in the urinal at the bathroom scene. And then Tom Arnold again, like he's trying to cheer Harry up. He's like, we're gonna catch some terrorists, beat the crap out of them, and you'll feel
yes, yeah.
But I mean, some of the best ones, I gotta give it to my man Bill Paxton here as Simon. The vet gets him wet, he says.
He's just going on in that whole like Corvette car scene. He's like,
she's like all these babes. You get their pilot lit, they can suck start a leaf blower. Oh God, she's got the most incredible body and a pair of titties make you want to stand up and beg for buttermilk. Ass like a 10-year-old boy.
it's so slimy.
When he's talking about, Simon's talking to Harry about
she can be hot if she wants to.
Ass of a 10-year-old boy. Who the fuck says that?
Some of those lines didn't age like the greatest, obviously. And then I
don't think that line was good in 1994, but I think
it wasn't good then, and it sure as hell isn't good now.
I think it's just like supposed to convey the sliminess of Simon.
Well, obviously, but it's just like, whoa.
Oh my God. I crack up still because I know it's that. It's just like, yeah, they're just doing it to make him look like more of a dick than he even is. Too.
Yes.
Oh man.
I would also add, obviously, I think my favorite line, just because I got the biggest laugh, was "You're fired" as he shoots the missile with the terrorist on it. I don't know, man. Like, I'm so endeared to his final lines. So like, Commando, let off some steam, Bennett, or, Mr. Freeze, you're not going to send me to the cooler. And then you have this one, like, you're fired, shoots the missile, blows up the helicopter, end scene. And it's just, to me, that's my favorite line, just because it's this, he says it so straight and then just, oh my God, dude. Oh my God.
You have to have that Arnold, like, last one line, that
you do.
This is going back to Terminator, you're Terminator fucker, even though it's not Arnold who says it. That's Sarah Connor's character.
Yeah.
So Linda Hamilton, but yeah, so it's like tradition. This is tradition at this point. Like we need to have something like that. So even going back to Predator, you're one ugly motherfucker.
Yes. Dude, oh man. And real quick, I forgot to mention one other favorite scene would be when he hops in the Harrier jet and starts trying to take off, but he can't quite take off. And Tom Arnold's like, take cover. Oh my God. He's like, he's got this. He's just a little rusty. And like, he can fly a plane, this Harrier jet, all of a sudden. It's like, oh my gosh. Like that whole scene was ridiculous too.
Yeah. Talk about a military Superman. He's like, oh, okay. You can do all this too. Flies a Harrier jet. Just pick that up in his spare time. No wonder why he's a shitty father. He's flying Harrier jets.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, my favorite line, I'm sticking with "You're fired," just for the final line.
Okay. I'm going with the vet gets him wet. Oh, Simon. All right, what is the best? I've got a few things here. The action set pieces are amazing. Like James Cameron doing an action set piece is just,
he knows how to build the sets, man. He knows how to put on a show and a production.
He knows what to do with them, and he knows how to create tension, but also show action and make it entertaining. Like fucking A, James Cameron. But also Jamie Lee Curtis, her performance, I think that aged beautifully. I think she's amazing in this. Agree. I also would say put up Bill Paxton in that age as well. R.I.P. as well, Bill Paxton. So, and then the other one is the Tango. I think the Tango aged beautifully.
I would actually arguably probably say that is what aged the best. The Tango.
I think we're in agreement on that. Yeah. Like the way they filmed that scene too, the one in the beginning, and then obviously they end it with it. I was like, that's perfect. Like, I love this. So yeah, that's my what aged the best, Tango. For what aged the worst, like I don't have much.
Really have anything other than maybe Bill Paxton's couple of his lines.
I would say some of the Bill Paxton lines. I would also say like not having
hold on.
Not having
I got something.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
don't mean to cut you off. Before we go to what aged the worst, I forgot. I told you what aged the best. jihadists trying to blow up America, because that's still going on today.
I mean, you could throw. Listen, we're doing a fine job ruining America ourselves. All right,
I mean, we're doing an excellent job. Yeah, we don't need any outside powers.
Christ.
We're doing a great job at the moment. I
Don't
didn't
even
mean
have
to cut you off. I'm so sorry.
Don't even have to talk about what the Supreme Court did this week. God, the debate gave me anxiety. I'm like, we're ruining this country ourselves. So don't worry about it.
Don't worry. Yeah. You don't need to put nukes. Trust me. Just
yeah. You don't need the nukes. We'll tear apart ourselves at some point. So, oh my God. Yeah. So that, all right, fair. But I would also say there's jihadists
trying to blow up America might have fallen out of
they've kind of fallen out of fashion, because now it's like white Christian nationalists have kind of taken over that mantle. So
actually, that's a very good point. You're right. The rise of the white Christian nationalist, who we're just letting them parade Nazi flags around our streets and Proud Boys, and we're not doing anything about it. Like, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So debate's the worst. Yeah.
Because I was actually going to say, what I was saying with the age the worst is just like the broad brush of like having these characters. But like the issue I have with the film is that like the villains aren't interesting at all.
They're not.
Like they're
really
too much of a broad brush. And that's where I was like, and that's where I think the movie falls short of like being great, because you think of a movie like Die Hard, which I think is very comparable. Now, granted, Die Hard may not be as funny. There's some funny moments in Die Hard.
There's pretty funny moments that are like not like they're supposed to be funny, but not funny because he's just quipping the whole time he's running around. Yeah, I would say that's comparable.
But Hans Gruber is a fucking great villain. Like
it's Alan Rickman, man. Like,
I get it, but that's the thing is that I think when Cameron said at the beginning, like you're sacrificing one thing over another, I think he sacrificed something on the villain, and it was too broad of a brush. Like, not that he's not good, but it's just like he's not interesting enough for me. There could have been something more, and I think when we get into the scenes of like where Harry's more focused on the home life and the things that are going on with Helen and using those resources there, we lose some of that. And you can't like almost Simon becomes the villain. Now, granted, I've said it this whole time, Bill Paxton's amazing as Simon. And I think he's a good like B plot villain on this.
Yes.
But like,
you don't spend any time with the villains.
Yeah. He's really not the
whole middle that you just don't spend any time with them.
Exactly. You lose sight of them completely. And I get that that's kind of like, oh, we're following Harry and he's more focused on this. And that's what allows him to get captured and all this. But like, we could have had cutaway scenes to like what they're doing or just something more interesting for them. I'll always say great action movies are always defined by how good the villains are. They always are. So
agreed.
So that's where I think it falls short. All right, interdimensional Rick and Morty interdimensional cable box. What version of this movie would you like to see? So I had a feeling you're going to say this. You're going to, yeah, go ahead.
It's come on, man. I want to see him use the helicopter blades as skis. Come on, dude. They're doing awesome. Because like those bad guys are on the skis. We didn't even talk about how they're going off these jumps with their finger on the trigger, actively shooting, but they're not even aiming. They're just shooting blind. Like, how did they not shoot each other when they're doing some of this stuff? But I want to see Arnold on some helicopter blades for some skis.
Yeah, I like that. I like that too.
So,
all right, for this one, it's hard for me to say like what I wanted to say as far as the international cable box, because like. I'd like to see that one, but I'd also, what I'd like to see, because you mentioned it earlier too, like there's no black people in this film. I would love to see this movie as like an all black cast too.
That would be great.
I think that would be awesome. I was trying to think about it because I didn't have much time to think about it. Like I was focused on some other stuff, and I'm like, man, like who would we cast in like the Arnold role for something like this?
Oh man, who's like a big, what's his name? What I'd like is I am blanking on his name for some reason, even though I love him. It's Finn from Star Wars. Dude, what the hell am I blanking on his name for?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I feel like he'd be great.
From The Force Awakens.
Yeah, and attack. Oh man, I forget. I didn't. Anyways,
Yeah, no, I know who you're talking about. Is it John Boyega?
Yeah, John Boyega would be. I feel like he'd be fun. I feel like he's got some comedic chops to him, or I don't know who else. I would say like I'm not gonna throw like Eddie Murphy or any of the traditional people in there, but I think John Boyega would be good. That would be fun, something like that, or maybe even do it like John Boyega and The Rock, just because The Rock tries to emulate what Arnold was doing.
Well, I was gonna say, I think The Rock is like more the obvious choice for who would play Arnold's. Like,
Right.
I was thinking about that because I was thinking, I'm like, oh, Idris Elba would be cool, but Idris Elba is too cool. Like
He's too cool. He's too suave. Yeah, hell yeah.
Like he's James Bond. He's not.
He is James Bond. Yeah.
We need somebody that has like, and even though like we've talked about The Rock kind of like missing this this warmth, I think he could have done really well in this role. Actually, I think this is one of those ones where you plug like The Rock in for Arnold, and I think that it actually would work really well. So yeah. I think that's where like the obvious one comes from, and it's like who do we cast as his wife, and who we cast as Dana, who do we cast as Gib? That's where it gets a little bit more interesting. So,
right.
But all right, cool. That's the one I'd like to see because like we mentioned, like there's no black actors in this. I mean,
it is weird.
Yeah.
That's just weird. Like not a single person of color in this movie. And I was like, no, you had one. I'm sorry. You had one. He was helping out. He was a new guy on the job. Who do you think just because I give Arnold leeway that translates to you? He's like, oh yeah. He gets his awesome kill, with the camera and everything like that. So
Charlton Heston. Yeah. Who's the guy with the eye patch too. All right. Standout performance. There's Jamie two.
Lee. Well,
it's Jamie Lee and Bill Paxton. Like,
okay. So I'm the worst today. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to. My meds are dry. Like, I don't mean to. Go ahead.
I got Jamie Lee and Bill Paxton for my standout performances. That's it. I think Jamie Lee takes the cake though, for sure.
I would say Jamie Lee because I put Bill Paxton for pound because he's really not in it a lot. And so I would arguably say Bill Paxton belongs in the pound for pound if that's where I'm giving him that one.
Does he count? Like, I feel like he's in the movie a lot.
I don't think he is because you really get him in the diner scene and then you get him in the when they kidnap. And then after that, like that whole sequence, he's out of the movie for a lot of it. And then he's at the very, very end. So I don't count him in the movie a lot. I really don't because he's in it barely more than Charlton Heston's character and barely more than some of the other side characters. Because predominantly we spend most of the time with Jamie Lee, Arnold, and Tom Arnold.
See, no, you're right. We do. Like, that's who we're also spending a lot of time with Simon, I think, from the time his character is introduced until like they confront Carlos there at the dam. Yeah. So when I think of pound for pound though, and I think of like Charlton Heston is literally in this movie for like 2 scenes. And he dominates those scenes. Like he's really good. So that's where I'm like, he's doing the most with the least because there's so little in there. And that's where I think I graded on that scale.
I can give you that. I was just trying to give Bill Paxton an award of sorts. Basically, I guess that's where that comes from.
I mean, that's fair. So yeah, for pound though, I alluded to it. I'm going for Charlton Heston, but that's
fair.
Yeah. And you got Bill Paxton on there.
I'm going to stick with Bill Paxton on this one, just because I need to give him something, and that can be left up to debate and interpretation of that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to argue on that one at all. No, I think you have a very fair point, and I think that's a very fair award on your side for sure because he really does kill it.
Yeah, he's good. Like he's got the eye patch and everything. It's a different look for him too. Like he's usually, it's Charlton Heston. He's like, leading man central. I mean, he's actually got a famous scene with Jamie Lee's mom, Janet Curtis, in the what's it called? It's a film by Orson Welles. It's a very, very famous film. Anyways, I'll drive myself nuts if I start thinking about what it's called. So
who gets the Oscar then?
Yeah, who gets the Oscar? I mean, obviously, we've got the visual effects was nominated for. Wasn't nominated for anything else. Didn't win anything. I think there's really three. You could throw Jamie Lee in here too. By the way, I'm not going to fault you if you threw Jamie Lee in for acting because she's great in this. But I think it's Cameron for directing. The sound is great. The sound design is awesome in this. I was, dude, watching it with like my sound bar, 4K. It was, oh God.
Rocket.
It was awesome. It was rocking. I like all of a sudden when that first explosion happens, he's like, sure, here's my invitation. Boom. Like it just was like blowing up my house. Frank was freaking out. So, and then the visual effects is what it was nominated for. So I don't, who you got, man?
I'm going to stick with the visual effects just because they hold up. I mean, the fact that they managed to get real jets, they did a lot of the practical effects, things like that. I mean, acting wise, I can't really, James Cameron. Yeah. But like, honestly, it's the visual effects team. Like the stunt visual effects teams are the backbone of what this movie does and what it's able to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. And when you're looking at visual effects too, you got to count in the stunts and like the stunt performances that they did. Like you have the stunt people who did, Jamie Lee's stunt double who did some of the stuff when they're pulling out of the car and everything. It's just, that's amazing. Like how they were able to capture those shots practically. They wouldn't do that today because A, the insurance wouldn't cover it. B, it's a nightmare logistically to shoot. And now they can just do it with CGI. So it's like, it's almost cheapened in a way. It's not earned as much.
Agreed. Full agree on that one, man.
So yeah, I got to give it to the visual effects. I mean, it's something that holds up. This is 30 years old and it looks great. Like
it still really does. And that's my thing, man, is I wish movies would, and just any media these days, I wish they would still lean into practical because there's such an air of genuinity and longevity at the same time. When you watch something that has practical effects, like think of all the big movies that have practical effects and they hold up. They don't look cheap over time.
Yeah, it's like using CGI when you need to. I mean, we talked about it recently with Mad Max Fury Road. A lot of practical. Exactly. Like a lot of practical stuff. And they did use some CGI, of course, like you're doing the sandstorm or some stuff. But
right.
But obviously, like that's cool. It doesn't take away from anything. So I would agree. Like if you can do it real, then do it, and just use the CGI to hide some cables and stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Music moment. I think we can both agree.
Only one.
It's the tango.
There's only one. It's the tango.
It's all the tango, baby.
That's all it is.
Oh my God. It's lovely. It's lovely. I love it. All right. Music moment's done. Double feature. I was thinking, like I talked about it before, but I love having like an action movie like this and Die Hard and you looking at them. And I think putting that up against it, like they're very comparable, except the fact that obviously, let's be real, like John McClane's just sort of an average cop who gets put in a unique situation.
He's also kind of an asshole too, though. Yeah. John McClane is.
Yeah. Talk about potentially bad father and husband too. There we go.
Yeah.
There's an argument to be made. But there's certainly love there. And I think that they're actually in the movie though, like they're confronting their marital issues, whereas like Harry's being a spy, so he's using those resources to kind of confront his marital issues. So I think that's a good one too. But do you got any others?
I'm going Commando, dude, just for the action hilariousness. I'm in a silly mood, right? Die Hard doesn't really keep me in that silly mood, just because of how dope Alan Rickman is, and it's kind of funny, but this Die Hard to me is more of like a holiday time where I'm gonna go Commando because it's more of Arnold being a bad dad, but at the same time giving me those quips, giving me the cheesy action that I so crave after this, and so Commando it is. Yeah, Commando is a good one too. That was the other one I was thinking about doing, and you know what, you can see like Commando is sort of the building block for like the Arnold one-liners and everything, so yeah, I like it, and it's fun. Commando is like a fun action movie as well. It is. So I like that. I like that choice. I might actually change mine. I threw Die Hard in there because I love to see. Just I think there's there's some similarities between those two movies. I think. All right, who wins the day? America. The viewer. You really do, man. It's the movie doesn't feel like it's almost 2.5 hours. You can shut your brain off and you can just have a really good time. Movies, you should be able to escape real life in movies. And this movie lets you do that. It gives you a lot to talk about, a lot to love. Tom Arnold is absolutely amazing as the blow off steam guys, your sidekick. Arnold's amazing as this beefcake that runs around beating everybody up. Jamie Lee Curtis gives you the chops. Bill Paxton's funny and creepy. Dude, it's the audience are the big winners.
America, fuck yeah. Yeah, we do win. We're the winners in this. I mean, the only other ones I'd say is that like Arnold and Cameron. Arnold, the only reason I say Arnold more is because this was his movie. Like he kind of came to Cameron with this idea, so that's where I'm putting it in. But Cameron just like this in a lesser.
Cameron's got enough wins.
In a lesser director's hands, it'd be anything else. But yeah. I'm going to throw it to Arnold. Arnold wins the day on this one. Just talk about another guy who's got plenty of wins right there. Those two is Arnold.
Very, very fair.
I mean, we did compare this run at the beginning to the 80s Lakers there. So
we did.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. Letterbox score time. Matt, you lead the way.
You know what? Just because I'm kind of stuck. I'm in between a 4 and a 4.5. I think I'll settle for a 4 out of 5, only because the main villain really could have been more, and we lose them throughout the middle part of the movie. Like, we think it's going to be a movie about them. It kind of switches to a more like, hey, my wife needs XYZ, and then they get kidnapped. And it doesn't make it a bad movie. I love this movie to death, but it's not like a 5 out of 5 because there are some faults, right? You kind of have to ignore some of the faults. And so I'm gonna go with a solid 4, just because I feel like the villain was just there as like we need to actually have a real villain again. Yeah,
that's sort of my big gripe with the movie. It's too broad of a brush, and it's just like, central casting, Arab terrorist 1, basically. Yeah. And that's what it is. And it just doesn't, it's not interesting. It's not compelling. Like, and I think that action movies are always going to be defined by like how good the villain is at some point. So, and there are exceptions to that rule, I think, but for the most part, when you look at like some of the best action films ever made, like Die Hard, to mention one, or even something that we hold in maybe a higher regard than this one, like Predator. Predator is a way more interesting villain than this. You have fucking Predator. So
yeah,
it's just something that I think is a little bit lacking. I will say, and there are some nits I have to pick about this. Basically, you think about like the scene where Arnold is where they're the striptease scene, and Arnold has to like rewind the tape back. I'm like, how the fuck does he?
How was she not hearing the clicking of the tape? Well,
also, how does he rewind it back to the perfect spot to make him say the thing again?
Yeah, that too.
Like,
right.
that
I mean, I can ignore that, but you're right. You are right.
That drove me nuts. That's not enough to like make it, make me like go down. But throughout talking with this, I'll say that I came in ready to give this movie 3.5 because I thought some of the stuff that just was like, okay, like with the villain stuff and the story, and if they're gonna make the villain this interesting, they maybe should have cut back like the time on it. But now I'm like, no, I really enjoyed being in this. I just wish they gave me a little bit more with the antagonist that we have, like, make Simon and your terrorists be sort of both interesting instead of maybe one overpowering the other, and I think that's where the movie falls short. So I'm gonna give it 4. I think we're in agreement. So make it easy.
4 out of 5.
4 stars. Yeah, 4 stars out of 5. So
quality.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that does it for this episode. But before we go, Matt, where can people find you?
You could search me any social media, probably Matthew Tyler, TikTok. It's like Darth Matty T or something like that. But Hops Geek News is mostly where I'm on, obviously, for the other things that I do. But yeah, man, what a pleasure this movie is. Fun to return to get to play in like this kind of area. And that's where you can find me at.
Cool. You can find me at Sir_Charles_Mac on Instagram. That's where I do most of my stuff. And then you can also find the Real Buffs page at the Real Buffs on Instagram. And then you can also find us on Letterboxd too. That's where I actually keep our running scores of what we do for movies. So if you want to interact with us on that, always game interact on Letterboxd. Give me recommendations, whatever.
Please do. Yes.
Yeah. And so that does it for this episode. Next week, we are not leaving 1994. And we're going to be visiting an all-American film. I will just say that because, we're coming up on July 4th. So all-American film, 1994. I'll let you guys figure out what that's going to be. And we got the trailer coming up next. But on behalf of the Real Buffs, I'm your host, Charlie.
I am Matt. Cool off.
Cool off. It's summer. Enjoy.
Hello, my name's Forrest Gump. Would you like a chocolate?
Oh, thank you.
It's funny what a young man recollects.
You're the same as everybody else. You are no different.
Your boy's different.
Are you stupid or something? Mama says stupid is as stupid does. I'm Jenny. I'm Forrest Gump.
She was my most special friend. My only friend. We was together all the time. We was like peas and carrots, Jenny and I.
Run, Forrest!
Hey, stupid!
Run!
Now, you wouldn't believe it if I told you, but I can run like the wind blows.
Who in the hell is that?
That there's Forrest Gump, Coach. Just a local idiot. I never thought it would take me anywhere. They even put me on a thing called the All-America Team. Well, you get to meet the President of the United States.
Congratulations. How does it feel to be an All-American?
I gotta pee.
I believe he said he had to go pee.
Now, maybe it's just me, but college was very confusing times.
Have you ever been with a girl, Forrest?
I sit next to them in my home economics class all the time.
Have you given any thought to your future?
Go! What's your sole purpose in this army?
To do whatever you tell me, drill sergeant.
You're a damn genius. You are going to be a general someday, Gump.
Yes, drill sergeant!
They sending me to Vietnam.
Listen, you promised me something, okay? If you're ever in trouble, don't try to be brave. You just run, okay?
Okay.
Where you boys from in the world?
Alabama, sir.
You twins?
No, we are not relations, sir. For some reason, what I was doing seemed to make sense to people.
Forget about me and get yourself out!
Been awarded the Medal of Honor.
How come? Now, my mama was always telling me how miracles happen every day. Some people don't think so.
Jenny!
But they do. You can come home with me at my house in Greenbow. I'll take care of you.
Why are you so good to me?
You're my girl.
Paramount Pictures presents Tom Hanks.
I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
Robin Wright.
Will you marry me? I'd make a good husband, Jenny.
You would, Forrest.
But you won't marry me.
Gary Sinise.
I never thanked you for saving my life.
And Sally Field.
My boy Forrest is going to get the same opportunities as everyone else.
A film by Robert Zemeckis.
What's my destiny, Mom?
You're going to have to figure that out for yourself.
The world will never seem the same once you've seen it through the eyes of Forrest Gump.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.